wants to open it up for questions?
I'm just facilitating.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to
Yep.
answer that question real quick,
So,
Todd, and then we'll go.
I'm looking at Brian, but I think we usually build a lot of the amenities up front with the early phases of the project. You know, they've learned from experience. You can't, sales are driven by amenities, and, you know, you can't build out and not have the amenities as it's part of the group plan. So it's usually in the upfront pricing. Huh?
Who's the builder?
D.R. Horton. Yes, sir.
I have several questions. Sure. All right. I think we pretty much covered traffic. Everyone understands traffic, right?
No, we haven't.
Well, we all
Not even
agree
a
that
long
there is,
shot.
traffic is a problem. I'm on the board with several other members at Riverstone. Traffic being a huge problem, and we understand you're gonna address that, but why would you wanna put an apartment complex in the midst of residential?
I think they have to.
So,
I think
you
they
know,
have
as we
to.
plan communities, we see a wide variety of mix of use. A lot of things have happened with just straight subdivisions of gentrification and mixing people up. A strong community is, you know, has a lot of diversification in it. We see apartments also as a needed housing, you know, can fit the more affordability that, you know, your comp plan actually strives for. You know, we hear that price, obviously, house prices have all went up in the last 2 or 3 years. There's not enough volume there, and there's a lack of affordability. And so apartments are something that we see as a starter home and affordability from when we're planning a community. And we feel like that is echoed in the comp plan that the Henderson County has.
With apartment complex though, you've got, you said 312 units?
That's right.
Is that right? So that's roughly 1/4, 25% of your development, but yet it does not represent 25% of your overall property that you're developing. So it becomes more dense in that area. And that adds additional concern to the traffic situation outside of Riverstone there, because your proposed entranceway is directly across from our first entrance off of Butler Bridge Road, and the second one is directly across the street from our second entrance off of Butler Bridge Road. I would formally like to request a traffic study done other than just on Butler Bridge Road. I'd also like it done going through Riverstone, because as construction increases and your traffic goes down Butler Bridge Road, it's going to back up even further than what it is. So now Riverstone Community becomes a cut through to cut back onto North Rugby, which then can cut back out onto Hendersonville Road and actually come in a different way to go to 26. So we already have challenges with our own residents going through the community speeding, and we have a lot of small children. So we would like to have that study done as well, if that could be requested.
We can pass that on to DOT. I know that all of Riverstone is public roads as well.
Yes.
I guess,
We already have 55-mile-an-hour traffic on North Rugby Road.
I
You
understand.
guys are creating a mess.
Well, I haven't created any traffic yet.
This whole project is a mess. You got an elementary school and then a huge subdivision on the same side of the road, and now you're gonna put another one on the other side of the road. How in the hell are you gonna get people in and out of there?
And I would
You ain't.
just say, again, if you have a comment,
I'm
if you don't
done.
mind writing it
It's the
down.
most ridiculous thing I've ever seen done to my home.
To address your question, I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. So you think people from this development would actually cut through Riverstone
Yes.
versus
Oh, yeah.
just turn left and go up to Rugby
Absolutely.
and take a right?
Let me ask you this, if you're in a traffic jam and you're on the interstate, and it happens all the time, down 26, if it backs up to Long Shoals Road, and it's backed up from Long Shoals Road all the way up to 44, what do? You get off at Long Shoals Road, Raise your
Well-
hand if you get off at Long Service Road. Absolutely.
I'm trying to get more, like, I guess, are you thinking, just so I can relay it to my, I wanna really understand the concern. Are you thinking traffic at the red light at 25 on Butler Bridge backs all the way up past past Rugby?
Yes.
And then and those people would cut through. That's the scenario you're looking at. Okay. So we as we do traffic study, we'll know the queuing distance from Rugby or from 25 back. So that gets taken in consideration. Ideally, we provide more storage up front, wider 2-lane storage. And I think a part of this DOT project's gonna relieve some of that concern in itself is, because DOT's reflected that same issue to me, is they have storage, they do not have enough storage at 25. And that's why you see backups today dragging all the way across the bridge. When that bridge is widened, you'll have 2 lanes of storage, which will shorten that, shorten that distance up.
The queuing still comes from North Rugby, coming in from North Rugby. That's where you have the challenge, coming in from there.
If it backs all the way up and blocks it.
Yeah.
Understood.
All right.
So we
when
can,
you talk about your
Can we let-
population density, everybody from Riverstone has gotta drive somewhere. You can't just walk to a restaurant, walk to stores at all, or church, or, it wouldn't be a long walk, it'd be 4 or 5 miles. So now you're gonna add 1,200 more units, well,
Times 2.
everybody's gotta drive somewhere.
Times 2.
Because there's no place I can see or easy access to get to 25 to go to a restaurant, or doctors, or a lawyer, or anything else. You gotta drive everywhere you go.
understood.
And you say your build is 8 to 12 years, well, we're gonna take care of everything. If it's the 12th year, I'm not really happy. If you take care of all of the roads and everything before you start building, now I'm happier. Not totally happy,
That's what I want to do.
but happier.
Yeah, and that's dependent on the Department of Transportation. So
Because it's
they're,
gonna be a mess. All your construction vehicles gotta go down North Rugby. All of the ones that are bringing in all this stuff to build your houses, coming down North Rugby. Because they're not gonna drop by helicopter. And I worry about the people in 4-story buildings on a flight plan.
okay.
Because sometimes, especially the smaller of the airplanes, get pretty low.
So we coordinate with the airport on
Yeah, okay.
all building heights and.
I'm just saying,
and that
just
other
let the
part.
people know you're gonna be 100 feet up, it's gonna be an airplane.
Yep.
I just got 3 more questions.
Sorry to take your time.
No problem, Bucky. Line CFL board member here. You're gonna drop right away. My understanding that I've read is that your proposal is to do the apartment dwelling first. Is that correct?
No. It shows up as phase 1 on what we've submitted to Autumn, but those aren't, I guess, those don't mean we're going in that chronological order. Does that make sense? Is we divide it up in 10 phases, doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna start with apartments as phase 1. I think a part of our study is vesting, making sure we can do what we're proposing to do. Clients will do market studies, understand where the demand is, and sort of go from there. So no, it doesn't mean we build apartments first.
Still, with that being said, 1,200 plus home complex, it's gonna have a huge drain on our educational system that is serviced by Riverstone and in that community. Riverstone alone, we contribute a large number of our students at Glen C. Marlowe, which is right down the street, which is an A-plus school. A lot of our children go to this school. There's 550 students there. Out of those 550, what are you gonna do with the children that go from this development, Taproot Dairy? If you use the same numbers that we have right now at Riverstone, we account for 51% of our students that live in Riverstone go to Glen C. Marlowe. And roughly about 25% go to Rugby and West. If you use those same numbers in just the apartment complex, you're looking at approximately 100 kids. And we're looking at just doing on average 1 child per home, knowing full well that not every home's gonna have 1 child, and knowing full well that more homes are gonna have more than just 1. So if you just do the law of averages, you're having a huge impact on an elementary school that's already pretty full.
You're
What is
talking
your
about
plan?
needing a new school.
They're gonna have new school and then more taxes.
Your development would need its own school.
Yeah, and Jesse, if you want to, I can kind of help. So for North Carolina, we're not allowed to do contract zoning, and we're not allowed to do impact fees. So unfortunately, our general statutes doesn't give us any way to combat developments with the school growth. But understanding that it would be the responsibility of the county to, address that, if that was the case. But unfortunately, we can't make the developer responsible, for, not even on a voluntary basis. North Carolina, even in their court systems, does not allow that.
Okay, well, speaking of developers and responsibility, we live in Riverstone, and our developer took the responsibility upon themselves to be a good steward in the neighborhood and contribute to Henderson County Public Schools. And we contributed each time they closed on a home. Now, there is a rule, though, that says every time we sell a home in Riverstone, the seller pays that fee. What neighborhood steward are you going to be? Because you got apartments that will not be there. They'll continue to go around and round. The only property taxes that help support the school system will be from the owner of the apartment dwelling. You will not get nearly the amount of revenue from Henderson County as you do as a residential single-family home. That part will be a huge drain on those children that are entering the school system.
So, besides we can't, I guess we can't ask for it, or they can't force us. What this project is developing tax base. That's how the school systems are funded. I think everybody knows that. That we're pushing to what we expect to be a $250 to $350 million tax base on this property. And that equates to about $1.5 to $3 million a year, depending on what the tax rate is, going into the county coffers. $3 million a year. And so that's a lot of money to build schools, maintain schools. The stewards of the county is everybody living in here, and they vote on how that money gets spent. So as for apartments, I would argue we actually provide more tax base when we show apartments. So those 312 units apartments on less than 25% of it, I think is what you said. It probably lands on 25 acres. Is going to be valued at, my guess is, we just developed one sold in Bumper County for $40 to $50 million. And so you start getting actually a much higher tax base on a smaller piece of property, which actually gives you more taxes per acre and increases the tax base.